Welcome to First Responder Financial Freedom Podcast. We talk to first responders all over the nation who are investing and working on businesses outside of their first responder jobs. Our goal is to motivate and educate each other and help provide a better financial understanding for a better future. Now here are your hosts, Mike Webb, Tyler Thrush, and Aaron Foster.
Right. We are back again. We are almost a year into recordings every week. And we're having some guys repeat, like our buddy Adam Forstner, who was on episodes 19 months and months and months ago. It felt like a lifetime ago, to be honest with you. But if you guys don't remember, go back and listen to it. A quick recap of it was he is into polyjacking, which is lifting up concrete. He's done some expansion. He's gotten 6 rentals, 1 long distance in Florida. He's starting to look for VAs. Last time we talked, he was trying to have somebody build out a website, and I was trying to talk him into importing a excavator for his brother in Philly to pick up. So welcome back. Appreciate you coming back again to talk with us. So what have you been up to? Since we've been talking about maybe almost a year ago or 6 months ago, I know you've increased sales and revenue and holdings and profit, and you decided to do some landscaping with your trailer and your house.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I just actually looked right before I jumped on, and it was June 5th, so it's been not a year, but we got a whole season in it, lifting concrete and kind of looking forward to doing another one. But besides the concrete, we added 2 more rentals, or a duplex and a single family, to our portfolio, and then I'm finishing up a flip in the next 2 weeks here, hopefully before we go on spring break down to our Florida house. Trying to finish up, which I'm sure I'll be pulling my hair out rest of this week and next week just to try to get it done on time. But
the first 80% of a flip, maybe even the first 90%, is easy. You're cruising. That last 10% is the part that just makes you go nuts.
Trim work and just pulls,
everything, all the little stuff.
I hear most of that out, but there's still just things that I do, and we're going to try to stay
tedious. The little stuff takes the longest.
Oh God, it's not hard work. It's just time consuming.
Tedious, time consuming. I get it.
Yeah.
So Adam, obviously, people could listen to episode 19, but in 30 seconds, can you just give people a brief overview of kind of where you're at, what you got going on? Obviously, we alluded to the polyjacking concrete lifting business, but can you just give a quick background for folks that haven't heard that episode?
Yeah, so full-time, I'm a firefighter. The city we're seeing actually today is 8 years on the job full-time, and then I did 4.5-ish part-time volunteer at a department prior to that. My wife and I own 8 rental properties now, 1 short-term rental in Florida, and then a good friend of mine, myself, last year started a concrete lifting company, polyjacking company. So and that was kind of due to flipping houses as well, and having a hard time finding anybody that would actually do mudjacking or polyjacking for us.
So was that a franchise? I don't remember.
It is.
I think it was.
Franchise.
No, all right. I was definitely wrong.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Can you break down what it was or what it is?
Yeah, so we, a lot of people, even I feel like if you talk to realtors and people who buy houses where I've had mudjacking done, have no idea even what it was and what happened to their house prior to them buying it. But it was just lifting sunken concrete. So a lot of times if people are getting water in their basement, among many other things, whether it's bad gutters or grading or downspouts, sometimes if your concrete's pitched at the house, you might be getting water in your basement, or if your step is more than, we talked about, the 8-inch kind of lift of your front step, or there's trip hazards, or we just drill holes in concrete and we lift it up and level it out, or add pitch to it, or just to kind of make everything nice, smooth transitions. In colder weather climates like Wisconsin, where I'm at, winters do a number on concrete and heaves. So, shifts around, goes up, goes down. New construction, when people are backfilling or contractors backfill around houses, a lot of times they don't compact like they should. So over first 3, 5, 7 years, things kind of settle and all of a sudden now you have concrete kind of pitched at your house.
So basically, like if you have water running underneath of something like concrete, like your front steps or your front driveway, or whatever it might be, it's going to wash away the sub base underneath of it. And what you're doing is you're coming in, drilling holes, sticking a material down underneath of it to lift it up, to force it to back up to the level it's supposed to be.
Correct. Yep. Or wherever they would prefer it to be. And we may add a little more pitch if it's sitting or standing water, wherever they want it to be.
So I don't know if you want to get into this, but what does equipment like that look like? Like, what is it? The setup, the add-on, the prices, the maintenance. Like, what does something like that look like?
Yeah. So I mean, we talked last time about buying a van, which even if we looked at buying another vehicle, and ordering a Ford Transit van is still a year order if you want it as custom as we want it. But we ended up going with a trailer and a 3/4 ton truck, and then this company in Wisconsin here, HMI, built it out for us. So it's got a decent sized generator, a large air compressor, reactor, and then 2 parts of foam, basically an A and a B that goes to the reactor. We heat it up and send it down the line through the gun. And when they come together, the concept of kind of like a great stuff, as it comes out, it just expands like crazy. So, and this is high density, so it's got the power to lift things up. So if you put great stuff underneath it, nothing would really happen because it just doesn't have the power. This is closed cell, so when it lifts or when it goes together, it's moving. Something's going to move.
So basically, you have all your stuff set up on your rig, right?
Yep.
You have lines coming off, and you have like basically 2 materials coming through the gum. It agitates it, and then it has a reaction. And when the reaction happens, the closed cell form happens, and that forces the void to lift up or expand or push out, right?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, something's got to give, and it's always going to take the path of least resistance. So if the concrete sunk, it should go back up. I mean, sometimes there's issues with rebar that kind of bent down that may hang it up, so I think last time a lot of times we'll cut any joint just to make sure it's free, and then we'll lift it back up. So
you said you expanded. The last time we talked about it, you had your rig set up, and now you're looking expanding, right?
Yeah, we're trying. We're definitely trying. We're just some growing pains. I mean, having a semi-seasonal business is tough to find good employees or somebody who's committed to coming back season after season.
So let's talk about that. You said you'd just been. How long have you been in business?
Almost a year. I mean, we picked up our vehicle, our truck and trailer, March 15th of last year. So
okay, so pretty much we'll call it a year. So yeah. You said it's kind of seasonal. So what does that season look like? I'm not sure.
We weren't sure how long we could go last season, and basically until the ground freezes. So we'll probably start next week lifting concrete, which is earlier than we did last year, and we went into mid-November. So once it gets colder, we kind of start later in the day. I mean, if it's freezing in the morning, it's just hard. I mean, not that we can't lift the concrete, but the materials heat everything up to get everything going. It's just a little easier. So later in the season, we slowed it down a little bit, but we were still working. Okay.
So obviously starting out, like, did you ramp up business towards the end of the season, or how did basically the cadence of jobs go? Was it here and there? Was it booked solid?
Last year when we started, we weren't sure what we were going to have equipment, and we weren't sure what we were doing. We knew we could figure it out, but there was definitely a learning curve. And the first few jobs we went to, there was multiple jobs I went back to multiple times just because it wasn't where it needed to be, or we were a little shy, or we weren't hitting the material up enough, so it was backing up into the gun, and then we'd have to take the gun apart, and then it happened again. It was like, we needed more parts for the gun because we were ruining it ourselves. So once we got dialed in after 2-3 months, we could move so much faster and just be way more productive. So early on, it was probably $1,000 a day. By midsummer, it was probably $2 a day, and by the end, it was closer to $3, if not even a little more than that.
When you say $3,000 a day, so gross sales in a day was roughly $3,000. Okay.
Yeah.
So is that just, are you a one-man band, or do you have full-time employees, 1099
So I own
folks?
a business with a buddy of mine, Dylan. He does it full-time. This is his full-time gig. And I'm Firefighter as well. So my off days, I'm doing a lot of the quoting. Right now, he's doing a lot of everything. So I'm trying to finish this flip up. But as we start lifting concrete again, I'll do a majority of the quoting, and then he's out with the truck and trailer every day. And we had a high school kid helping us out last summer, which was just a huge help for, he said, drilling holes, cleaning up, prepping everything just to keep everything moving.
The gopher.
Yeah. And he's coming back again this summer. And then I got a buddy from a different fire department who's hopefully going to help us do some quoting this summer. He helped us out a few days last year, and so I think he can help out with some quoting. And then we hired a kid who's graduating high school. He's going to help us out full time this summer before he goes to college this fall.
So what's quoting look like? Like, are you having them send you pictures, video? Or are you going on and doing eyes on site? How do you quote out?
All of the above, but still, we talked last time, is if I can get in front of a person, the close rate is so much higher. It's it's a 3, 4, 5 to 1. If I'm just shooting numbers out, sometimes you can tell just by looking at Google Earth, because a lot of times I'll look in advance. If it doesn't make sense, or it's a long shot, or it's then I'll try to give a budget number or talk to them, see if they can shoot me some pictures that I can quote off of. But if it's a worthwhile job, I like to be in front of the customer. It does eat up a lot of time, but I feel like we're getting a lot more work closed that way, or locked up that way.
And what's your radius area from home base? Like, how far are you willing to go out?
Yeah,
is it miles? Is it hours? Is it dependent?
It's about an hour radius. So, I mean, myself and Dylan live is just north of Milwaukee. But once you start going into Milwaukee, I mean, to get to the south side of it, with the truck and trailer, it might take us 45 minutes to go 20 miles, where I can go north in an hour, and we're going 60 miles. So I'd say an hour radius is kind of our, and as we hopefully grow, maybe that'll get bigger, maybe it'll get smaller. I mean, as we, if we can get enough work even more locally, that maybe we won't need to drive as far. But if we're going an hour away, we're trying to line up 2 or 3 jobs, so it's a whole day. We're not just knocking one out and then driving an hour back somewhere else.
So for the stuff that you guys are adding this summer, and you said you're adding another high school guy, somebody who's doing the appointment setting, have you guys already been establishing your SOPs, SOGs as far as what you want that to look like? And then you're able to book stuff out right now for the entire summer, correct? So are you guys leaning heavily into that when you're not doing as much? And did you guys ever consider hiring an appointment setter, or is that who you're bringing on in addition to somebody else to help you with the actual manual labor?
So we, after we talked last time, I was looking for a VA. We ended up finding a company that's calls on calls in near Madison, Wisconsin. So they basically, all our phone calls go to them. We use Estimate Rocket for our customer management system, and they've got an account on it. So when the phone rings, it goes directly to them. All our emails get turned on to them. So they do all the phone answering, calling back, setting up the appointment, kind of letting them know, hey, they usually let them know someone will be following up with you within a week. I mean, it's kind of it's hard with, I want to get to certain areas in a day. I don't want to just drive around doing quotes, one here, one there. I mean, I try to knock out an area, so I can maximize my time. So they do all the appointments, initial setup, they put it in the system. They will do the follow-ups. And that's been a massive help. And that saved a lot of headache.
So can you break that down a little bit? Because I don't think a lot of people understand. Why wouldn't you just answer your phone? Like, I understand why you're doing it, but I think sometimes folks don't understand, like, oh, wow, I can have somebody actually answer all my calls while I'm out doing stuff all day. And then I can basically sit down for an hour and return them all. So, but why would you do that? Like, what does that look like as a cost? And do they do any sort of screening, like pre-vetting, or and do you think it saves you any time?
It saves us a lot of time for sure. And they went over with us. They've got a nice system. There's probably, I would guess, 6 to 8 different girls that work on our account. So I'm sure they've got lots of other accounts. But when they pick up the phone, it's jacked up concrete leveling. They want to know how they can help you. And they will pre-screen a lot. So they want to know if it's, so we went over, they've got a nice long flow chart that they go through and ask the questions, they're predetermined questions, try to narrow it down, whether it's making sure it's not asphalt or the concrete's so broken that it just doesn't make sense, that it's accessible for us to get to, because sometimes that happens. So they save us a lot of time. And if there's question that they can't answer, they will usually text me while they've got them on the phone. And if I can answer it, I will, or they'll send them right over to me, or they let them know that someone will get back to them within the hour, typically.
Now, so we talked before, you talked about setting up your website and having somebody build it out. Have you had that done yet? Are you still looking into it? What do those costs look like?
Well, so our jacked up website was set up professionally, and I think that's decent. I mean, there's not room for improvement. Well, you and I talked over Facebook Messenger a little bit, where I posted something. I was looking for my short-term rental, having a landing page, and
That's right. That's what it was.
I have yet to have that done, so I'm slacking on that. So
it's not. Well, it doesn't sound like you have a whole lot going on. So I'm sure you have
right, but who doesn't, right? But that's one of those things. I said I needed to delegate that, and I'm falling short. So
that's all right. It'll get done. So let's talk about the rentals. You've increased your holdings. You've increased to have a short-term rental. Like, what have you bought since we talked last?
Yeah, so we bought a single family that needed. I usually try to buy like value add. Like I need to do something to it. I don't just buy turnkey rental properties. So my wife found a single family in the north side of Milwaukee, in an area that we like. Just kind of did our standard. I mean, new floors, new paint, new fixtures for rentals that we like to do. But it needed some work. I think it needed a new roof. And then we've got renters now, and knock on wood that I haven't started with the property management company. So the new ones I've been turning over to a property management company. A lot of the older ones that I've had tenants in for a long time, I continue to manage just because I know they're going to reach out to me directly anyway. And that's going fairly well. There's sometimes where I still feel like I'm more involved than I should be, even with the property management company, but I'll get there. And then so we bought a duplex as well. And that one, kind of the same thing, new floors, new fixtures, new baths on that one. That had to be gutted and remodeled. So
are you doing that? You're doing it yourself, right? You're basically your own GC.
I am, but I've got some guys that work for me or that I contract out to that do a lot of my work. So I'm trying to do less and less, but that's my business partner Dylan was actually laying into me the other day. I'm trying to source out more and more of my work, and then he was asking what I was doing on paint and trim at the flip, and he's like, "Dude, isn't this is this really worth your time?" I'm like, "No, it's probably not," but I'm committed to doing it apparently. So,
especially, yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I said if you're trying to hit $3,000 a day in gross sales, I guarantee whatever that cost would be to paint that trim and the fascia is going to be a lot less than that. It's hard though, because you get started doing things on your own to save money, and to break that cycle is a tough one, especially for guys who are used to doing the work. It's a difficult thing to do. So I'm sure as it goes on, you'll be able to do it more and more, but we all struggle with it. There's things that we should not be doing that we jump back into the business and do. And I think it's always the path of least resistance for both of us. So you're like, oh, hey, I can paint this real quick and get it done. I'm sure Mike has those things. Aaron has those things. I definitely do. I'm sitting here calling utility companies about stupid questions that I could have my VA do. And it's like, really, like, why am I even, like, I got a text right now. Oh, this is the Caldwell Water Department. I'm like, oh, I'll take care of it. Right. It's like, I have.
That's like my number
do not
one thing
do that.
I hate. Utility companies.
Yeah, and I have somebody who will do it for me, but I want to do it.
On the same token, though, like I know you're paint and trim. Like I got a quote to paint a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, normal 1,500 square feet track house, and they wanted $10,000, and I'm like, for $10,000, I'll just do it myself. It just depends on where you are, and it's the I don't want to do it price versus the I don't know how to bid it price. Same thing for like I had 14 joists replaced at my property by the ski slopes yesterday, 14. And I had a guy said he wants to charge me $45,000. Now, I don't know if he just thought I was Mr. Moneybags or some schmuck, or he doesn't know how to bid it out. But I was like, at this point, like I'll spend 3 days, go up there, I'll do it myself, I'll bring all my tools. But then I found somebody else to do it for $3,300. So for $42,000 less than the original bid. So like sometimes you just got to do it yourself, and I don't want to spend a whole lot of time bidding some things out. So I get it. Like sometimes you just put on your boots, put on your big boy boots, put on your big boy pants, go get your hands dirty for a little while, and then suck it up.
Maybe that guy thought you wanted a 1,400 square foot addition.
Yeah, I'm like $45,000. Like, do you? And he's like, what? And he tried to sell it to me as, well, I got to put pressure treated lumber, and the prices are up right now. And I'm like, who buys this bullshit?
Well, Yeah, that's almost like the quote, like, I don't even want the job, so I'm just going to give you such a stupid number. But that's beyond stupid. If you can do it for 33 and 45,000, like, come on. But
Yeah, so he's been texting me. He's like, "We can work on the price, man. Let's just talk about it, and I can meet you there." I'm like, "Get fucked."
yeah, let's save ourselves a bunch of time.
Yeah,
So
we're gonna waste both of our time. So, all right. So, have you been enjoying the short-term rentals, or are you still like filling the waters out? Like, where are you at with that?
So the one we have, we may buy another one down the road, but we use it as well. My parents are staying there right now. So the one we made a few bucks last year on it. We probably made like $2,000 to $3,000 profit on it. We bought it in February of last year, so we owned it just over a year. My wife takes care of most of the bookings, most of the problems, most of the issues. So then I'm fortunate on that end of it. But I don't know that we'll probably buy tons more. And the short-term rentals will probably continue. I'm sorry, the long-term rentals will continue to buy and hold. But that one's kind of we've got some family friends that live in the area. It's kind of nice to get away a little bit in wintertime. So it's
I imagine Wisconsin in February is beautiful.
Yeah.
A little tempting to go south.
Right.
So can you talk about that, Adam? Like how you manage something that far away? Because I know with short-term rentals, it is, yes, it's a real estate play, but it's more of like a hospitality business than it is real estate, in my opinion. Versus the long-term rentals, yes, you have to do some stuff, but it's not usually as time sensitive in most cases. So can you just kind of talk about that and how you do it from a distance?
Right. Well, you start by having a wife that manages the whole thing. No, she does a great job, and I think we're like a super host on Airbnb. And that takes a lot of quick responses, and I'm sure you guys are probably more in tune than I am, but it's a little bit of a question as to when the next person is going to book. We're starting to book out for summer again, which is nice, but I have a long-term rental. I kind of sign a contract. I know what my costs are. I know how long someone's, at least a year, if not longer, what my costs are going to be and what my profit is. Where that I feel like is just like, well, I hope people sign up and go.
What have you been at? What over the last year? What did you average as an occupancy?
I want to say I'd have to look for sure, but probably only like 35%. If I had 35 to 40%.
Jeez, but it's
Is yours weather dependent or location, time of the year?
Yeah, so we're in the Panhandle. So I next winter we need to do a better job of finding maybe some snowbirds to go down there. So it's busy a lot of the summer, the warm months. I think a lot of inland people are taking their summer vacations, and then kind of late winter hit, and it sat pretty idle most of the winter. So, and my parents have used it. My wife used it a few times, like during gun hunting season. She was down there with some friends. So,
were you hunting, or she went down there to hunt?
I went hunting. She went down there to hang out with her girlfriends. So,
good trade.
So, like mine in my on months, like the winter months, the summer months, I obviously have a higher demand because it's a beach town, but I'm in like a 95% occupancy. But in the off months, I'm like, we'll say October to April, I'm at 0% occupancy. So mine is, and I knew this when I bought this place because I've had them before. I knew going into this, like if I don't make all my money in these 5 months, then I can take an L for the whole year. So I don't know if you guys are in the same boat, Mike. We talked about occupancy rates before. Like, how's yours doing?
Well, something that is important to realize, like you don't necessarily want 100% occupancy, like because obviously that would mean your pricing is too low. But you also have the wear and tear that goes with it. So if you can make all your money in 5 months and it still covers itself for the year, to me, that's almost better as far as the property goes. Now, that would not set well with me when it comes to like the worrying factor, because I've had, oh man, it's vacant, it's not. So as far as ours go, I actually pulled mine off Airbnb and put it with another corporate housing client, because then I have it filled for at least 8 months and they're paying above market rent and I don't have to like really worry about it. The other Airbnbs we have, they've all been 80+% rented, but they're also more of like a contracted type worker Airbnb. It's not necessarily a destination type location like he's talking about. So mine is, in my opinion, less seasonal, but that's fine too, I think. So as far as
So are you
occupancy
doing
goes,
like
they've been
are you
okay.
doing like contract workers, like nurses, doctors, lawyers, people built here building, doing whatever, or insurance, or like when you say contract, what does it look like?
So I have one. It's an insurance provider. So like the people are renting it for 8 months because a tree fell through their house and they pretty much have to have their house rebuilt. So they're in the one house for at least 8 months with the option to extend. We just had a group of guys that were, I forget what country they were from, but they were here working on one of the big like commercial warehouse projects. They had some sort of specialty. I forget what it was, but they were here for like 4 months working on something. And then we frequently get the like 3-month contract nurse or whatever medical field they're in. So we kind of had a little bit of everything.
I like that. So if anybody pays attention to Mike's post, he's got one in Shepherdstown, West Virginia, which is a popular little college town. And every time he puts it on there for like insurance contracts, they sing him the absolute blues and call him every name under the book.
That's the house somebody told me to go play in traffic. And they said that I was the reason. I was something greedy and I'm the reason housing and everything sucks, basically. I was like, well, that's a little strong. And what's really funny is the price I was advertising it at, I think at the time was like 2,900 or 3,000. I'm getting more than that. So it's kind of funny, like, haha, like you're sitting there busting my butt over what I'm advertising for. And it's just a prime example. Like, I don't care what you put on Facebook. If you go based on what those people say, oh my God, you'll just hate life. That they're not economists. They're not real estate experts. They're entitled to their own opinion, whatever. But yeah.
Who'd you end up renting it to?
So actually this one, they found me on Zillow, and the company, I forget, it was something like, the long and short of it is it's still with the company that I used before, which is called CRS. They're out of Arizona. And I forget, they had like a local person that found it, but that's where the check comes from. So, cool. And they said, hey, if you're willing to sign less than a 1-year lease, we'll pay more than your asking price. Now with that, I include lawn care, trash, internet, electric up to a certain dollar.
Excuse me.
Bless you. So it's kind of like an Airbnb where it's pretty much all inclusive, but you're also getting above market rents. So,
Adam, have you looked at doing that with any of your properties, or Tyler, you too? Like, have you ever looked at doing these ideas?
I have not. I mean, I think it's a great idea, but I have not.
What about you, Ty?
No, not the corporate stuff. I mean, every time Mike talks about it, like every other shiny object, I want to go chase it. But no, for me, no. And the Airbnb, I had one a long time ago, like, I don't know, it was like 2007, 8, 9, right around there. And we made good money on it, but it was just, it was not for me. Like Mike said, I was running a hospitality business, not a real estate business. And I was like, yeah, I'm out. I kind of like the fact that Adam, he said that there was a decent amount of vacancy. And to your point, Mike, because if I'm going to go stay there, I don't want the thing to be thrashed. And we have this cabin that we go to in Mammoth. It's beautiful, but you can tell that they've probably been running it out more than they used to. And it's showing its age. And I'm like, man, if you could get this to a point where you're okay covering your monthly nut and you have a 30 or 40% vacancy, then it's like, okay, I would leave it empty and then go travel and stay there more often, especially like you said, Wisconsin in the winter. I'm sure it's cold. Go shoot down there, answer your polyjacking calls from Florida, be in a great mood, close some deals. But yeah, the corporate stuff to me is interesting because I feel like, especially with more remote working, I think that has a more solid base. And the Airbnb stuff for me lately, I just feel like it's so oversaturated. That group that Aaron invited me to, it's like the barrier to entry on some of these people and the expectations versus reality, it's just not something I want to play in. But I was thinking about that for Adam. I'm like, well, if they wanted to do that down in Florida, he could have like an 8-month contract or a 6-month contract. And then that's one client. It would be interesting to see what your gross and net would be if you were to take that corporate versus Airbnb and be like, okay, it's the same amount net for 10% of the work. I'd be really interested. Mike, have you taken that same unit and looked and said, okay, here it is with CRS, here it is with Airbnb, and see if there's really that big of a revenue difference?
Yeah, I'm actually making slightly more by doing the
With
corporate rental
CRS?
route. That's the rentals. I forget what it stands
Can't
for.
remember
but
shit for us older people too.
Yeah, it is the intermediary basically between the insurance carrier. So a lot of the in your policy, you'll have like a housing allowance, and depending on what your insurance policy allows, determines how much they're willing to pay and for how long. So, like if your insurance is through State Farm would then utilize CRS to go find housing solutions for the policyholder. So I never get a check from State Farm, for instance. I get a check from CRS, who is basically handling the housing for these folks. So but yeah, I don't have the vacancy or any of that stuff that I was having, and just the turnover, and these towels are missing and these sheets got dirty and ripped. So I don't have a lot of that. And frankly, it just allows me to focus on other stuff, because after I did the Airbnb model for just say a year, I quickly realized, even though I have most of it systematized to where our VAs handle 95% of it, it's a lot of back and forth. And I just didn't want to build an entire business like that. So it's worth it for me just for I was just going to say it's worth it. Even if I was making slightly less the corporate route, just to not have to deal with the minutia day to day and thinking about all of that stuff. So
when we were talking about this before, I had contacted a corporate company in Annapolis, and I'm just going to read the numbers real quick. For a 1-bedroom house, they rent for $2,200 to $2,800 a month. 2-bedroom is $2,500 to $3,500. 3 bedrooms are $3,900 to $4,500, and 4 bedrooms are $4,900 to $7,500, which are astounding numbers. And it's an expensive area, but like those are big, stout numbers. You can get in a potential real estate game for at market value and still make money with these numbers. And they're doing the same thing that Mike's doing. Is they're doing 3, 6, 9 whatever months contracts to house people who had an emergency at their property. So just keep in the back of your head, I need to look into it more. It's just bandwidth capacity, like we were talking about. It's just something else, some shiny object for me to take a look at. So Adam, let's get back to you. What are you working on right now? I'm sure you're working on the flip and the business and the other houses. Like what else? What are you working on? Like what's taking up your energy right now?
Well, the flip, so we're a couple of weeks from being done. So right now I'm spending a lot of my off time on that. And then trying to help out. Dylan's doing a lot of the quoting right now, and he's going to start lifting next week. So just trying to get him up to speed so he's ready to go, or anything that I can do to help him. But I need to start doing a lot more of the quoting. Probably come next week, and we're going to spring break, and then after that, I kind of have to be game on for me to do majority of the quoting.
The profits from your short-term rental, from your short-term rental, the profits from the flip that you're doing right now, are you going to just take the tax hit for them? Are you going to rep that into another property or project? What's that look like?
So we, as of this last year, because my wife's a realtor and we own enough, she was able to become a real estate professional, or categories as.
Good.
But we we'll buy another long-term hold is my plan.
Are you going to do a 1031 and wrap the money into it, or are you just going to cash out and then take that money and put it into it?
Cash out and take the money into it. Maybe there's ways there's a lot I need to learn yet, but just because I'll only have owned the house for 4 months when we put it up for sale. So
anybody listening, me and Mike were having this conversation. I was messaging him last night on Facebook. Is if you do a 1031, it defers the taxable gain on the money you would make when you sell the property. So quick numbers, if you sell a house before a year, then you have to pay short-term capital gains, which is right around, we'll say 40%. And if you keep it for a year and a day, you're paid closer to your earned income rate, which is, we'll say, around 20%. So like Adam and me, I'm in the middle of flipping a house. Actually, I'm just finishing it up. Adam's going to finish his up, and we're looking at a 40% going to Uncle Sam of the profits, which is a big chunk of change. So for the property that I'm selling right now, it would be around a $32,000 tax hit that I have to pay taxes on, and it's a big chunk of numbers.
I've heard
If I don't want to pay that money, I can put it into what's called a 1031 deferred transaction, and that's just taking the profits from it and rolling it into the next property. So for transparent numbers, I'm selling this house for $350,000. The next house has to be $350,001 up to double the amount of $700,000. So if Adam sells his for, we'll say $500,000, then the maximum he can buy on the next property, roll the money into, is $1 million. Or if he sells it for $750,000, the maximum he can buy is $1.5 million. Whatever the numbers look like, but the maximum is 200%. You have to identify a house within 45 days and close on that house within 180 days. So lots of, I think I put the same info image in the Facebook group, so you can take a look at it. But if you don't want to pay those tax gains, then I highly recommend just taking a look at 1031 and seeing if it's worth it to you.
He also has the benefit now of the full-time real estate professional.
Yeah, that's true.
He can do accelerated cost segregation and not have to do the 1031. So now you've opened up to Aaron's strategy and then to an additional strategy, which won't limit your 45 days. And you could do different things. So it's kind of cool that you guys did that, because now you have two different options. And that's the whole name of the game, is how many options can you have when you dispose something, and then how little taxes can you pay?
Tyler, what is accelerated cost seg?
So a standard depreciation is 27 and a half years for residential, 37 for commercial. So they're going to take the value of the property, divide it by 27, and then that's what they're going to allow you to write off each year. A cost segregation study takes each portion of the house, assigns a value to it, and the rate at which it depreciates. In the last few years with the tax codes, they've allowed for accelerated depreciation on a lot of these things. So let's say you're into a house. I think what my accountant told me, and we are not accountants, we are not giving financial advice, but he was saying basically 33% of anything that I was taking as far as a purchase price goes, that ends up what I would be saving on my taxes, which was huge for me. So if Adam's able to do this, instead of just doing the standard 27 years, let's say he has buys $100,000 house, he can, in the case that I was given by my accountant, he could write off $33,000 in income. Where if you look at that versus the 27 years, yeah, I mean, it's a huge difference. So I love it. I know it's going away soon. So I don't know.
Well, it's stepping down, right?
It's going down
graduated from 100 to 80%.
Correct.
So, but that could obviously change. I've thought about the whole 1031 because I'm looking at one right now. And to me, it's kind of like you got to pay the piper eventually, unless you do the step up basis when you die. So to me, it's like, do I pay the taxes now and just get it over with? Or do you just keep kicking that can down the road, knowing that the chances of taxes going down over the course of my lifetime is probably slim? So that's just kind of one of those debates I constantly have with myself versus just, hey, take the tax hit now and keep going. So
once
don't you need to own the house for 2 years to, take complete advantage of the 1031, like you said?
No, you can have the one I have. I bought it in the beginning of February. It's under contract to close at the end of March. So I'll have it for less than 2 months, and I can just 1031 into the next project. But to Mike's point, I like the mentality, like you get kicked in the dick here, or you get kicked in the dick later. But one strategy I got around that,
or
was,
both times.
But one of the strategies I got to do around that is, once you buy the next house, if you buy something under market value and bring it up to standards, then you do a cash out refi. And the cash out refi on the next property is a non-taxable event. So you can keep that property indefinitely until you die, and just keep doing cash out refis and never pay taxes on that money that's wrapped up into it.
Yep, and then have it in a trust, and then the person who gets it in the trust gets it at the stepped up basis. You pay no taxes, they pay no taxes, and that's the big one. I mean, that's something that we should actually have somebody on, because like you said, kicking the can down the road will work infinitely as long as you have the right strategy.
Sure. The trust is something I wish I knew more about, and I wish I knew somebody who knew more about it. But it's definitely a conversation I think we should have as a group.
So for sure, again, for me, my family 2 years ago, or was it my grandma passed away 2 years ago, right? And my aunt, my uncle, my mom inherited their property at a stepped up basis. And dude, they didn't have to pay taxes on it, and it was a decent amount of real estate. And to me, it blew my mind. I'm like, it's so crazy that, like, to your point, Aaron, if you did not know about this, the amount of money that you'd be paying towards taxes. And it's cool to see it firsthand when it wasn't directly involving me, but I'm like, okay, this is powerful enough to where I need to make sure everything's held in a trust, because the tax savings is significant. And, like, all of us are working hard. You got your side hustle, Adam, you got all this stuff going on. And it's like, there's no reason to give it away if you don't have to.
So
we're all playing by the rules.
So you open a trust. It's this big fake document, right?
Yep.
It's all giant corporate shell game. But anyways, so you open this trust, and now your kids are beneficiaries in the trust. So whenever you die, basically, because they're a beneficiary of the trust, there is no inheritance tax or anything, right? Basically, instead
Correct.
of 5% member of the trust, now they become 100% member, or whatever the breakdown looks like with the number of kids, correct?
Yeah, it's crazy.
The only
We should
drawback
definitely
I've
dive
seen
into that some more.
The only drawback I've seen of the trust is that if everything's in the trust, so you own virtually nothing, the trust owns everything, and then you're just a beneficiary of it. But this is the only one I can come up with, was the trust can't get approved to buy more real estate, or you can't get approved to buy more real estate because you technically don't own it. You're just a beneficiary of the trust. So in order to get approved to buy more, you're going to have to own more. It's a pay-to-play program. You can't use the trust to show income. This is how I understand it. I could be completely wrong, but that's how it was explained to me.
You can get a loan for a revocable trust.
Revocable.
Yeah, they will lend on it.
Okay, but not an irrevocable trust.
Correct.
Oh, that's confusing. Adam, you tracking, bro?
Clear as mud. Yeah.
So, Adam, sorry, we've definitely railroaded this conversation away from jacking up concrete leveling. But so you've been in business about a year. Like, what are some things, looking back over the last year, like some takeaways, like things that have gone well for you, not gone well, you wish you would have changed sooner, what that looks like, just from an overall business perspective?
I mean, the season one went well. I mean, we're coming back again for another year of it. There's definitely learning curves, but a lot of that stuff, you gotta do it like anything else in life. I think you gotta suck it up and figure out, push through and figure out what you were doing wrong and grow every day a little bit. And we definitely learned a lot, especially sit on the speed of being able to lift the concrete, just prepping everything in advance as opposed to trying to do a million things at once. I mean, in the morning, I know Dylan starts the truck and trailer, gets everything nice and hot, an hour before he leaves, so that when we show up on the job site, as opposed to wasting time, he's ready to go. I mean, a lot of little things that you just kind of pick up along the way. And there's definitely things. I know the podcast we did last summer, I actually showed up last minute. I almost missed it because Dylan had lifted a piece of sidewalk that snapped in half, and we had to figure out what we were going to do with it. It ended up being that the concrete was 2 inches thick, not 4. So it really wasn't his fault. It was someone poured some very cheap concrete. We did replace it for the woman, and she was very grateful and not completely understood. But in the moment, it was a big old shit. Yeah, it was early on. I was like, oh, now what? So things happen. You just gotta, delegate, or you just gotta, adapt and overcome. And
what do you think are some of your biggest learning experiences owning and growing this business so far?
Dylan's probably more organized than I am, and that's something I am improving on, but I'm working on. But just like you guys talked about, having a SOP kind of for everything you do, so the next person, not that I'm not get too into the weeds with rules and regulations on things, the way you do things, but just having a good idea for the next person, what they need to do so that they're not starting from scratch every time. And we're hoping to grow it. Dylan and I were talking this morning a little bit, and how maybe the concept of a junk dog that you guys have had on. I mean, trying to figure out how to go from one rig that I think we'll buy a second rig this summer, to 3 or 4 or 5 or more, but getting the buy-in from the people who hopefully we can hire, that obviously they want to keep coming back or have some stake in the game, that they obviously want to keep doing this and grow the business as well. So
would you ever look at franchising what you're doing?
Maybe. Maybe
that's like a whole nother animal.
Yeah, I mean, I prefer the idea of growing the business, and so maybe if whoever runs the next vehicle, I mean, if they own a percentage of their vehicle or however we do it. I mean, kind of a franchise idea, but still keeping it in house. I don't know that. Never say never, but we got to go from 1 to 2 and 2 to 3 first, and then maybe we'll start worrying about it from there.
So sometimes I have to remind myself of this, but it's sometimes just it's better to get better before you get bigger. So like focus on what you already have, make sure you're maxing it out. You're as efficient as possible. Like you're getting your average ticket sales up to 5,000 a day instead of 3. Well, if you go open another store, location, whatever you want to call it, that can severely detract from running this one. You know what I mean? So, and it's funny you say like at the time you're freaking out, right? You lifted the concrete, it broke. The customer's probably like ready to wig out. Maybe they're not, I don't know, but you make all these things in your head. And I'm certainly no like tenured vet when it comes to owning a business, but I think about the things that happened to me now. And if they would have happened to me like 6-7 years ago, I would have lost my mind. Right. And now I'm just like, okay, like we're going to figure it out. Right. So like I got this guy right now. He's like, I'm suing you. I'm like, okay, dude, just sue me then. Like, that's fine. We'll go to court. Like, I know damn well you don't have a case. So because you just talked about systems, like I know that we have X, Y, and Z all documented, right? Like we have all the messages you've sent us. So it's like, you just start to become a little bit more comfortable, like with small business ownership, which is like a full contact sport, in my opinion. When this lady had a thing posted the other day about, oh, it's Saturday at 7 a.m. If you own a small business, like raise your hand, you're out hustling or something. I was like, yep, 26 hours a day, you basically have a small business. And that's one of the things like I'm trying to work on is like getting better at having kind of like parameters with running a business and raising kids. And like what Aaron talked about before we hopped on, like, because you are a small business, sometimes you have to do a little bit of everything all in one day. And when you work at home for your side business or whatever it is, it's very easy because the kids are up here or this is going on. It's very easy to just blend it all into one. Next thing you know, you're working a ton, right? There's no, hey, I got off work this morning, I'd go back on C shift this day, and in between is your free time. Well, not when you have a small business. I don't know if you guys ever experience anything like that, but I'm guilty of, I'll just respond to this message or I'll answer this Voxer or whatever it is. And next thing you know, you're on your phone, you're at the dinner table, you're doing this, you're doing that. It's not always easy to be like, this is when I work, this is when I don't.
Adam, how are you pulling your leads for both real estate and for
total other direction?
Yeah.
But that's a good point.
Look at the time. We've only got like 13 minutes left. So I'm trying to get some more information on the company. Sorry, Mike.
Yeah, last summer we found, which when we talked last summer we had him as well, kind of a lead generator. He's this Milwaukee mudjacking. He does a lot of contractors around the entire country. He kind of advertises for Milwaukee mudjacking, Twin Cities mudjacking. So when you're looking up, you're Googling mudjacking and locally, he comes up first almost every time. He's revamped his website though, that our picture, our stuff, and our information comes. It's us. I mean, you would think you're talking to us, and then if you fill out the form, basically it ends up going to calls, and which then he charges us a $40 per lead fee, which we turn out a majority of our business from him. I would say definitely Facebook marketing. The bandit signs have been helpful. I mean, as the summer went on, we were getting more and more word of mouth. And it said, even if the trailer's sitting out front, we'll get 3 or 4 people to stop by and ask hey, can you come look at ours? Take a look at ours next. So subdivisions are great. There's areas where if one's down, they're all down. So we'll go back to the same subdivision 3 or 4 times just because we did one job there. So the referrals are great. And the truck and trailer does bring quite a bit into it, I feel like. But I would
How about the real estate? How are you finding those leads?
Mostly my wife. This last house we're remodeling or flipping was a guy at the firehouse who's a good friend of his. Dad passed away, and they didn't know what to do with the house anymore. So most of the guys know that I do that. So they passed it on to me, and we made it all work. But it's a majority of our leads come from my wife is a realtor, and she's talking to a lot of people. We should probably do more advertising, but at least for the short term, I mean, I'm committed to making jacked up, growing this business. So that's where I'm focusing most of my free time, if I have any, on that business.
At $40 a lead, too, how many leads does it take you guys to close one deal or to close one job?
Well,
Do you,
we'd have to look on how we have to do a little better job with calls and how they're tracking, like
okay.
where they all came from. But I would say we're probably closing more than 50% of the leads that come. They're typically pretty hot leads.
I mean, so $40.
And if they're not qualified leads, then they shut it down, and we kind of go back to the Milwaukee mudjacking and have a list of the ones that if it wasn't anything related to, if they want us to pour concrete, they'll take that off. So cool. I would say we're getting, they're pretty, if they're coming, they're typing something out or calling, they're pretty serious for the most part. And there's not a lot of competition. So
you have an $80 customer acquisition on that.
Yeah.
Pretty much, right?
Yeah, I would say shooting from the hip, that's probably a fairly close number. Yeah.
And then what's your average gross job? What would the gross ticket be on an average?
So our minimum is 500.
Okay.
And a lot of them are 15 to 18 and $2,000 plus. So I would say $1,000, $1,100 is probably our average if you'd average them all. Average job.
So you spend $80 to get $1,100 gross, obviously.
Yep.
And then if you're at a 50% profit margin, you're at $550, $600. I mean, that's a great return on your money. And like you said, so now it's how do we take this and expand? So those are crazy good numbers, man. I mean, $40 a lead, that's awesome. I know for real estate stuff like Mike and I were doing, I mean, just an action is usually $175 for me on PPC. That's just somebody that fills out the form. And then it may be 10 to 20 people per deal. So, we're anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000 on that lead. So 40, I mean, I'm impressed with that system that you have with that guy. You added your call center, your VA, you're doing the appointments, and at that return on your ad spend, I think, you guys are going to crush it. I'm stoked to see what happens next year because and like you said, no competition always helps too.
Yeah, there's so when I started doing this, looking into it, I was going to buy a guy out. And for traditional mudjacking, decided that wasn't the route I was going to go. Someone did buy him out, and he's younger, and actually have been seeing him a fair amount, which is fine. Some decent competition isn't a bad thing. There's a lot of
you guys can work in cahoots,
right?
Listen, man.
I mean, it's a good thing. There's someone took it over and is making a go of it. So, but there's a lot of opportunity out there. I'm not concerned about that.
Yeah. And like Tyler said, those numbers are really awesome. And the fact you're tracking them like a year into business, like I can tell you when I first started like wholesaling, I wasn't tracking anything like that. I mean, I did not long after, but I didn't know what my cost per contract was or my cost per lead, what my average profit margin was. But once you start to track that stuff, you can start to kind of tell like, hey, last year or last season, our price to acquire a customer was 40. Now it's 120. What are we doing different? And it could be something as simple as just the way you're tracking leads, because sometimes people sit there and call a lead, but it's not. So then it can start skewing your numbers. But yeah, it sounds awesome, man. Like it's one of those things, like I frankly had no idea what it was. I would think a lot of your advertising or sitting across the table from a customer is kind of just the education component. Like, this is what we do. That's why I think the name makes sense. Jacked up. Like, oh, okay. That
right.
makes more sense to me than mudjacking. I'd be like, huh? It sounds like some sort of strip mining procedure.
And a lot of those leads come from the people selling houses. I mean, it's not, the market isn't quite as what it was, but it's still busy. And when a home inspector comes through, they tell them that, something's low or something's uneven, they flag it. And the realtor a lot of times will find us or find Milwaukee mudjacking and then comes our way. So those are very active leads. A lot of times those need to happen like right now, which we've been accommodating. So
have you looked at getting in front of municipalities or HOAs at all? Marketing?
We have. And last summer, one municipality we did a fair amount of work for. We need to grow that. And then we did some property management companies. They just looking to reduce their liability with trip hazards around their properties. And we did a decent amount of work, which I think will continue to grow that. So it'll take a little time, but yeah, there's definitely a good repeat customers that are usually fairly big ticket items.
So like, there's only 3 ways to fix concrete: so tear it out and redo it, lift it up, or grind it down. And you got the niche for the lifting it up and getting it back to level again. So, I mean, since there's only one person that you're competing against in your entire 1 hour area, it's just
there are a few others, but there's not. Most of those, like so when I was trying to call them for my work, it's a one-man show. They're busy enough as they want to be, and they may or may not call you back. They may or may not show up.
Yeah, the fact that you have a call answering service, you're calling people back, you're providing quotes, like there's no reason you shouldn't crush competition just doing those things, because the average contractor, like it's unbelievable. They don't call you back. They don't show up when they're supposed to. Yeah. So if you do those things and you show up sober wearing what looks like a nice uniform there with your hoodie,
right,
like you're solid.
Yeah. Yeah. We try to be professional and responsive. And I think that's
light years ahead of the competition. I can almost guarantee
there's a few others out there, but I think most of those guys are one-man bands, and when they book up and they stop picking their phones up. And that is what it is, which is great for us.
Yeah.
Which means you can get a second trailer here this summer and then just double your business because you actually answer your phone. I feel like just answering your phone is 50% of the business.
It is. We're paying someone to answer your phone. That's
because you're building a business. Like, that you just described the other guys, they're doing everything, which to each their own, but they have a job. When they go on vacation, guess what? It's not probably producing. It sounds like you have something to where, like, if you go to the place down in Florida, the business is still functioning, maybe not on all cylinders, but it's still chugging along, right?
And we'll get there. I mean, it's a process. Like I said, we want to be experts at it and max out trailer 1 and truck and trailer 1 and go to 2 and we'll get there. I mean, it's going to take 3 to 5 years, but the bigger picture is to grow, and we'll get there.
Yeah, it sounds like you're on your way.
And that's the fun part too. I mean, I don't know if you enjoy that part of it, but like figuring all this stuff out for me is fun. It's like, oh, how do I do this? It's like you're increasing operational efficiencies, right? And you guys are doing a good job at that. So for me, it's the whole fun of growing the business. And I'm sure you like the polyjacking portion of it, but do you enjoy figuring out all these systems and figuring out how am I going to make this work?
I do. I think the whole idea of figuring out things that are harder, I do enjoy that a lot. That's probably more what I enjoy than any portion of any business in general. It's kind of figuring problems out, problem solving.
I think the bigger the problem, the more you get paid to solve it, and the more backbreaking it is, the more you get paid to operate it. So I think you got 2 good attributes to yourself: is you can figure it, FITF, figure it the F out, and you're going to face the obstacles head on. You're not going to just back down from it, and you're going to take on jobs and figure it out. So hats off to you for the hard back labor and the mental fortitude, because a lot of people, once they have all that on their shoulders, they're not going to pursue it anymore. So hats off to you, Adam. And we're coming up on 58 minutes. Is there anything we missed that you might want to talk about?
No, I mean, so we're just trying to figure it out as we go, but I feel like the concrete lifting itself is getting pretty dialed in now. It's growing the business, and my business partner Dylan's, he's a smart dude. He's doing majority of the work. I'm probably more support to him than anything else, to be honest. So, but I think he recognized that it's tough to do it as a one-man band as well. So the 2 of us doing it together can definitely
opportunity
a lot more ground than either one of us individually. So that's
good. Partnerships make a big difference. Bad partnerships make a big difference too, though.
True.
Right. We've been good friends since we were probably 8 years old. So we know each other pretty well, which doesn't mean things can't go south, but we know each other pretty well. So we know how each other operate.
Do you bring him into the real estate world too, or is he just
I do not. And that's all for review maybe down the road. I mean, my wife and I kind of have been doing that on our own. But as we grow, there's definitely potential room for opportunity, and he's a smart dude, and he's probably better organized than I am. And being semi-seasonally, he's got some time off in winter too. So we're hoping though that there are other aspects of this job that are concrete lifting, that are foam, that we can do. There's definitely inside stuff in winter, and void filling. There's large equipment sometimes that's you can feel hollow spots in floors, or automotive shops that are having some issues with lifts and stuff because of void filling. So it's not going to be super busy, but those are higher dollar jobs that
Can you do the spray in like foam insulation, like where they drill into the wall, fill that void?
Yes, we don't. That's not an area we really want to get into. We've looked at.
Okay.
We quoted our first like exterior concrete. It was a concrete basement wall that's leaking into a large apartment complex. So we'd excavate it and then spray foam the exterior of it for like a water barrier, and then seal it. Looking at doing that a little more, but like spray foam. A lot of the equipment's the same. We would probably need a different reactor, a different gun, but 90% of the equipment would be usable. I just don't know that either one of us really want to get into spray foam for insulation. That's
sure.
Crawling through attics, getting stuff all over you. That's a messy job.
It's a messy job.
But it's a high-paying job, though.
Yep, and I just don't know that it's for us. So.
And that's important to realize too, like to say like, hey, no, we're not doing that.
And then I think that would also pull away. Like you need to do that all year long, right? And then you can't just say I only do it for 2 or 3 months in the middle of winter, or 4 months in winter. So if you're going to do a different job, like the flips are kind of nice. I can take 1 on or 2 on, and then finish it up, and then back onto polyjacking. So it kind of needs to be seasonal, and snow plowing is not something either one of us want to get into. So that's
to replace all of your equipment or to add another truck. Like, what do those numbers look like?
So we're probably going to go with like a box van, kind of like a U-Haul van. I think we'll do next. I think if we get another, even like the high school kid who's, hopefully we can get him by midsummer, kind of dialed up, then maybe he can take on some easier jobs on his own. A truck and trailer, I feel like for a new guy might be a little more. There's more opportunity to ruin something, where a straight truck is a little easier.
Yeah.
But the equipment itself, to have HMI build it out, is probably around $60,000, and then whatever container you want to put it in.
And within a year, you can pay off your whole overhead.
So what's that?
Within a year, you can pay off your whole overhead for the entire build out and structure of the company, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've got it spread out a little bit, just to make life a little easier. But yes, I mean, technically, yeah, we definitely could.
Cool.
We could spread it over a few years, though, just to not choke ourselves off for on income, so we continue to grow. And
yep, financing spreads the wealth down the road, so you can get profit now and instead of being completely dried up. I get it. I was just talking to a buddy of mine yesterday. He's ordering like an Oregon Trail trailer to make it a rental out in Arkansas. And he's like, the financing is going to cost me $950 a month. He's like, but projected, I should make an additional $600 net to $1,200 net on top of that. He's like, that way I'm not coming out of pocket the $60,000 to buy this unit. So
like a Conestoga wagon.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. Actually, I'll post it in the group later on. But yeah, it's like an Oregon Trail wagon.
Friends.
Actually, I think he works with you.
Probably.
All right, Adam, Tyler, Mike, you guys want to touch on anything else before we head out?
No, I just think it's cool to see the stuff implemented since last June, like you mentioned. And I think your numbers sound great. I think everything sounds good. I mean, you've added rentals. Everything sounds awesome. I think this is fun coming full circle and hearing like what you've been up to since then. I think it's impressive, and I'm definitely interested to see how it goes this year. So thanks again for coming back on. It's been awesome.
Thanks for having me, and congratulations on making it a full year. It's a good thing. I seriously enjoy it.
Touch and go.
I seriously enjoy what you guys are doing. I listen to every podcast. I'm glad you're doing it.
So you're the one.
Yeah.
The sixth listener we found.
Your mom's and me. So.
Yeah.
I did have somebody ask me today. They said, "Hey, how many listens do you guys, or how many subscribers do you have?" Somebody texted me, and I said, "Does that include our moms?"
Yeah. Subscribers? I don't know.
I said we have listens.
I do know Apple iTunes is the #1 platform it's downloaded on. But we greatly appreciate it. This obviously has been a venture and a little bit of a journey also. But it's cool to watch some of these folks. Like I've had a couple people reach out that have been kind of active in the group and listening, and not that we did much, but it's kind of cool to see like some folks that have been on this journey, start to see some growth and some rewards for like the action they've taken, because trust me, I'm sure there's way more people that have sat on their hands for the last year and not done anything, but have talked about it, thought about it, but didn't do it. So it's cool to see guys like you out there taking action and like building small businesses that, at the end of the day, they can be proud of. And if God forbid you ever have to get retired, or you want to retire, whatever that looks like, you have another option besides being handcuffed to some job or pension or whatever that is. So I appreciate it. That's all I have.
Well,
And
I was just quick to say too, I had a guy reach out to me this last winter, was a retired, I think, New York City cop who has a condo in North Carolina, who had concrete issues, and he had heard me talking to you guys. So, I mean, there's another guy on there too. So I thought that was pretty neat. I gave him whatever information I could about getting some quotes down there for concrete leveling. So,
well, thank you for doing that. I didn't know that, but we appreciate it. And that's, to me, like, that's one of the things that I really like about this community is, like you said, there's enough opportunity out there for everybody. And I truly believe that, like, if you're willing to take the action, like you can, like, you didn't have a ulterior motive, but like now that guy is going to, hey, if I ever have somebody in Milwaukee, chances might be a little slim that needs concrete raised. Oh, call Adam,
No, I don't mind helping them out. I mean, I give them the best information I can. I mean, like I said, it was right along the ocean. Like I'm not used to lifting concrete on sand near the ocean, so take that for what it's worth. But I kind of gave them some ideas on who to reach out to, and because they're having problems with the condo association. So just maybe
we always have to help the cops,
Yeah,
they always need our help.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, guys. Adam, thanks for copping on, buddy. I'll talk to you about this excavator here in about 2 weeks.
All right, sounds good. Thank you for having me.
All right, guys.
Take it easy. See you.
Thanks again for spending some time with us today. If you found value in anything you heard, please share with someone who may benefit. We look forward to connecting between shows in our Facebook group, First Responder Financial Freedom. Till next time.